It's Tuesday night. That means it's time for your weekly checkup. I'm your host, Dr. Lazar, and I'm super excited to announce to you for our newest season that I'm going to be taking over the show on my own. Dr. Kramer's doing awesome, but she has decided to focus elsewhere, and so super excited to be bringing you the goods. So it's the beginning of a new season. I am super stoked to be with you, and going to start right out of the gate. We're taking your calls live tonight, 866-521-WELL, 866-521-9355, and super excited to be streaming on our social media platforms. So if you guys are watching that, this is streaming live on WMUZ and on our social media platforms. So thanks for all of you checking in on that. And we're going to hope the technology gods are good with us tonight, and I'll be able to address your comments from social media right here on the air. So super excited about that. Thank you guys so much for the last 13 years of a fantastic show, and I'm excited to move onward and upward. So, we're talking tonight about traumatic birth syndrome. Traumatic birth syndrome. We are super excited as an organization and as a team to make sure that the community knows about um, exactly what they need to do, because in the United States and worldwide, there's a lot that happens in our nervous systems when we're born. Doesn't mean anyone's doing anything wrong. It just means that when we're born, the nervous system it takes a beating. That literally is what happens with the pull on the neck. And so our suggestion for that, what we find is that we get kiddos checked. A friend of mine, Dr. Tony Ebel, super huge on the in the pediatric scene for chiropractors. He's got a phrase that I absolutely love, and it is every kid counts. I couldn't agree more. Every kid counts. And traumatic birth syndrome is what we're talking about tonight. Now, I don't like things being syndromes necessarily because, that can be a challenge, and people might think, well, I don't know if I have that. And syndromes are, we don't know if it's named the right thing or if they call it right. But here's the bottom line with traumatic birth syndrome. So, the delivery process putting pressure on the brainstem of the baby uh, is a big deal. 7 out of 8 babies that die of sudden infant death have spinal cord compression and nervous system damage at the very top, right below the ears. 7 out of 8 sudden infant death. 7 out of 8 babies die from on autopsy. They find that they have spinal cord compression at the top there, at the level of the brainstem. That's a really big deal, because what we're saying is if that's not addressed properly, then there's a higher instance of babies dying from sudden infant death. The other thing is, if they're not uh, dealing with, if they don't end up with sudden infant death and they survive the delivery process, then if their nervous system is irritated, um, they're going to experience things like um, colic, inconsolable crying, things like ear, nose, and throat trouble. That's really big, and the research is staggering when we get to that. The challenge with traumatic birth syndrome is it's causing a problem with that system that allows baby to grow and develop. So think about it this way: we go from 2 half cells to 76 trillion cells, 2 half cells to 76 trillion. And we don't do anything on our own to make that happen. So what that means is something is controlling and coordinating all of that, and that is baby's nervous system. Baby's nervous system starts to form 7 hours after conception, guys. 7 hours. So we're not talking about this just being something when we're in our 50s and 60s and 70s. Literally what we're saying is, while the nervous system is differentiating when mom is pregnant for us, that nervous system is what allows us to grow and develop in utero when mom's pregnant for us. And then after that, we, when we're born, our nervous system is not any less important. I mean, if we think about the reality of that, our nervous system is what allows us to fight infections and learn how to read and learn how to speak. So if we don't address that properly, we're not going to be at our best. Now, sometimes not being at our best means that we get 98% on the test, but other times not being at our best means we're dealing with ear, nose, and throat trouble. We've got tubes in our ears. We've got tonsils and adenoids being taken out. We're antibiotic, we're becoming antibiotic resistant, all kinds of things. And I'm not throwing shade at any of this. It's just the reality. I mean, and then if we don't get that addressed, we grow into sensory problems. We don't outgrow these challenges, we grow into sensory problems, sensory processing disorder, ADHD, obsessive compulsive disorder, pervasive developmental disorder. In fact, I'm doing a talk on unraveling neurodevelopmental disorders in our office in Ann Arbor. That is going to be January 31st. So if you're listening to this live, there's time to register for that. You can register by calling our radio number, 866-521-WELL, 866-521-9355. We're going to take a short break, and I'll take your calls right after this. Well, we can check up. Our number tonight is 866-521-WELL, 521-9355. Talking about birth and what you can do about it. Super, super important that we are because kids need to have optimally nervous system. Our kids absolutely need to. Um, so kids chiropractic. This is the part that's really cool. Every time I share with people that we adjust babies and infants, and they at first they think I'm joking, and then they say, "Wait a minute, you're being serious about this? That really is that's a thing. I mean, you're allowing your baby to have this done. Well, if we didn't affect the nervous system the way it needs to be affected, then the results wouldn't be there. And people want what's best for their kids. So in the 100 plus years since 1895, chiropractic's been around. We have to think about this logically. So when our kids have teeth, we take them to the dentist, and we don't say, well, what's wrong with the dentist? I mean, what's wrong with the kid's teeth? Why would we need to take the kid to the dentist? There's nothing wrong with their teeth. And we say, well, the idea is that we don't want there to be anything wrong, right? We don't want anything to be wrong with their teeth. And so we take them to the dentist, and the dentist works diligently, and their teeth are nice and clean. And for kids, we have their eyes checked, right? There's We say, well, what's wrong? Isn't it just old people that that have eye trouble? Well, maybe they have more eye trouble, but don't we want to make sure um, our eyes are working? And so we have our kids' eyes checked, right? And we have their ears checked, and we have their lungs checked. But their nervous system is what controls and coordinates every organ, every tissue, every gland, every cell. That's what controls it. And so if you want your kid's heart working better, then you've got to make sure their nervous system is working well. And so one option with this is, well, we could look at it like uh, intervention model, and we could say, well, we're going to wait until there's trouble, and then when there's trouble, then I'll do something about it. I don't suggest that with heart attacks. We also could say, well, we're not going to wait until trouble. We're going to make sure that everything is working well. And that's a non interference model. That is a model where we are looking for interference ahead of time and we're addressing that interference so nothing permanent shows up. And so you've heard it said that an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure, right? Don't wait for there to be a huge problem to do something about it. Now you could say, well, hey, you know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You could say that. But we're saying, uh, don't you get your kids tutored? Don't you um, take them on vacation? Don't you buy them nice clothes? You know, aren't you doing things that are going to set your kid up for the win? Right? And the answer is, of course. That's absolutely what we want to do. We want to set our kids up for the win. That's what we want. And so, in order to do that, we've got to make sure that we are addressing things, being proactive, not waiting until there's a huge problem, right? We don't want to wait for that. We want to make sure that we are giving our kids the best shot they have. Absolute best. That's what we want. We want the best or nothing, right? So, as a result, we need to make sure that their nervous systems are working. That's the best way we can explain that. All right. So we're taking your calls live tonight, 866 521 well, 866 521 9355. We're going to take a short break and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to your weekly checkup. I'm Dr. Lazar and super excited to have you with us tonight. Taking your call, 866 521 well, 866 521 9355. We're going to take our first caller. Deb, welcome to your weekly checkup. Hey, can you hear me? Awesome, awesome, awesome. Hey, I recognize this voice. I think I think everybody listening will also. So, Devin, why don't you introduce yourself? That applause was because we didn't want you to not be applauded for sticking around that long. All right. So anybody around the Ann Arbor office has heard Devin on the phone. She parties with us and everything's awesome. So I wanted her to share her story because she has a really dynamic experience. She's got a front row seat to all the things that go on, and she is completely open on it. She'll shoot straight. She'll tell you the truth, and I want Devin to share about how she had different pregnancies, and one was before she was under care, and then one was after she was under care. And so, Devin, would just share what your first pregnancy was like uh, before you were a chiropractic patient. So that's a big deal. That's a lot when you're struggling with that. So then you start working on the team and start experiencing and you're under care yourself. Okay, so uh then what happens now with next pregnancy? How long were you under care before your next pregnancy? Okay. And, uh, okay, that's big. Okay, so r- yeah. So we talk about the nervous system, and we're talking tonight. I mean, the show specifically is on traumatic birth syndrome, but to that point, everybody's got a nervous system. And so we talk a lot of times about the nerves in the lower spine going to reproductive organs. And so women that have pinched nerves um, in their lower spine can have painful or irregular menstrual cycles. They can have fertility issues. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, and people don't realize that. Hey, wait a minute. This is a big challenge in my body. My body's not doing what it needs to do, and so fertility issues can be very um, big when the nervous system is involved like that. And so then when we're doing that, we get those nerves unpinched, and then um, your your reproductive system works differently. It works as designed. All right, so then you're under care for a little bit, and then uh, you get pregnant with Hendrix, and then was the pregnancy different? Okay. That's awesome. So that's a big difference. I mean, just in what you're experiencing. And then, so after that, you have Hendrix in the year of all years, right? In 2020. Um, so when was he born? When in 2020? Okay, so you have him in January. Uh, 2 months later, the shutdown happens, and stuff is crazy. What? How old was he when he got his first adjustment? R- Right? Yeah, that's big. So, okay, so tell me how crazy people think you are when they hear you had your baby adjusted at 4 days old. Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. And so now his immune system is working. Um, all the things are working. And so if you compare the first, you know, I, y- I'm not the mom, but if you compare the first 6 months or the first year or the first 2 years, whatever it is between, and I don't mean compare kids. I'm just saying, comparing experiences of uh, what is what your story was, what your experience was. Were things so what did you notice if somebody says, hey, you know in 20 words, how would you compare your chiropractic kiddo with your kid that started care later? That's amazing. That makes a huge and so uh, bonding is different. Skin to skin time is different. Oxytocin is released differently, and we never ever ever um, have with parents saying anything like, "Oh, you did this wrong," or "You should do this differently," or "This is bad," or "We're shaming you for doing that." None of that is the case. We believe that people do the best they know how, and then as we know better, we do better, right? And so it's neat that you have that experience. You can compare, and it's super neat that you didn't have to wait until your kids were 10 or 15 or 20 or 40 or 50 before you got your nervous systems addressed because we live our lives through our nervous system. And so that's awesome. Uh, all right. So, final thoughts for somebody listening. They're driving home or they're watching on our social media platforms and they're thinking, it still isn't clicking. I don't, why I want an infant or a kid or somebody that's not old with arthritis in their spine to to get their nervous system checked. What would you tell that? What would you tell that person? Well, I see now why so many moms and kids come in, Devin. I think they come in to see you, and they just have to put up with Dr. Clark and their. That's great. Hey, thanks for spreading hope and encourage family. And thanks for all your hard work, man. You make it happen. That's awesome. Have a great night. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to your weekly checkup. I'm Dr. Lazar. You can call live 866-521-WELL, 866-521-9355. We're going to go to our next caller. Jaden, welcome to your weekly checkup. Hey, so uh, Jaden has been a guest. You've been a guest on the show before, hosting, but you're off right now for whatever reason. I don't know why you're not hosting or working right now. Why don't you share with our listeners why you're not hosting right now? Whose baby is it? There we go. Awesome. 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 So we're talking tonight about traumatic birth syndrome, and that gets people's attention, but not everybody has to have a syndrome to need help. So if you would, why don't you share with listeners what your this was your first pregnancy, correct? And so when did you start under chiropractic care? When did you start getting your nervous system checked? Hmm. Yeah, that's a big deal. So, typically speaking, and this is for people listening, um, single umbilical artery or SUA, it's pretty serious. So, most of the time, my two umbilical arteries that go to the umbilical cord and to the baby, and then for whatever reason, one of those will kind of shrink or close, and it's dangerous because now, in theory, baby's getting half of what he or she needs. So single umbilical artery um, can lead to uh, it can lead to spontaneous abortion where the pregnancy is not viable. It can lead to birth defects. There are a lot of things that can be pretty scary. But Jaden knew. Now, Jaden, were you getting adjusted as a treatment option for single umbilical artery? Right. So right. So if your nervous system is working well, by the way, your nervous system controls your blood vessels. So getting adjusted um, and you also were using the beamer, which helps with blood flow. Uh, how did baby grow during your pregnancy? Was your obstetrician concerned? Was he underdeveloping? What did what were you told? Okay, so now so baby was growing fine though, so they were surprised, and um, that's great. Everybody praying, you're getting adjusted, you're using Beamer, all the, the right things that need to happen. And whether there's a problem or not, you want your nervous system functioning at its level because your nervous system is what allows baby to grow properly. So that's the right call. That's awesome. So then it's time to deliver, and um, you go through. Now this is your only delivery, so it's not like you can compare to other ones. But how did it go based on what you expected? In other words, a lot of times people say, well, your first one is going to be this or that, or you're going to be in tons of pain, or you're going to have horrible back labor, or it's going to be miserable, or whatever. I don't know. Um, how did labor go for you based on what your expectations? So it's interesting that the so they didn't induce you because baby growing, which is what typically happens with single umbilical artery. They induced you because your blood pressure was going up at preeclampsia and your heart rate was going up. So that's interesting to point out because, uh, and thank God that intervention was available and had a fantastic care team. It's cool that the induction was not because baby wasn't growing. That's very cool with single umbilical artery. So then you have a cesarean section. It was unplanned, but not an emergency. Um, your Christian that was on call, it was such a blessing. A personal friend of ours, Dr. Brian Pop, did an amazing job, and we're super grateful to him and the team. And then um, you have you meet baby Oliver for the first time. Now, it's important to point out that a cesarean section is not any safer on baby's nervous system. Again, nobody's doing anything wrong. It's just the truth is that some people think cesarean section is safer on baby's neck than vaginal delivery. That's not actually the case. It's not any safer based on research. But so now baby's born, and then take us through the next hour, do whatever you remember, whatever you experience, because this is really key. I mean, the first moments of life are so special. What did you experience, and what would you share with our listeners? Sorry about that. My mic flaked out. Okay, so did you notice that he didn't turn his head, or was that something you noticed once I pointed it out? Okay, so okay, so you noticed it. Then he gets adjusted, and um, so I remember very distinctly a comment you so cool, so special. So he was, I don't know, a few minutes or maybe an hour old, however long it took. I wasn't watching my watch, but uh, the things that so you we noticed his head started turning. He was able to latch on, which is really cool. His color got better, and as soon as I adjusted him, I don't know if you remember this or not. I know it was a great time for your words to me were, "He's breathing better." I don't know if you remember that or not. And it's not that he was breathing poorly, right? There was nothing noticeable. The DAP guards were fine. After he got adjusted, that little tiny gentle adjustment, the same pressure you touch your eyeball with, your first comment to me was, "He's al- he's breathing better." Do you remember that or not? You have a lot going. So that's really cool. That to that point, it's not that there has to be something wrong. We can still always do better, right? We can always get better, be better. As long as we're alive, we can get better, be better. Okay, so he got adjusted um, at a few minutes or an hour old or whatever, and then he's been adjusted a few times now. So he's 12 days old. He's been adjusted 4 times, I think. I don't. You would know more than I would record. I mean, does that sound about right? Okay. And what tell our listeners what you noticed. Like, um, why is he getting adjusted? Is he on a schedule? We did nerve scans on him once he was able to come to the office, and we some nerve. That's what we can, right? And then get him. And what are some things you notice uh, that let you know maybe needs to be adjusted, or that you just got adjusted? Just share some of that with our, if you would. For people that don't have blow, means he fills a diaper, right? For people who don't have kids, a blowout means he fills his diaper. Just so people know, like that's not getting your hair done. Absolutely. And so he gets adjusted, his nervous system's working, he gets tuned up, and you notice changes, and he's not even 2 weeks old. That's amazing. So what's he gonna, think about the trajectory. We can't make up lost time. So he is getting adjusted, and he has lived 12 days of his life, and his nervous system is in tip top shape. And then he'll live a year, and this compounds in two, and then 20, and then 40, and then 60 years, and his nervous system will be working well that whole time. That is absolutely amazing. Well, I'm super excited to be able to kind of follow his journey. I know our listeners and our watchers online will be very interested in that as well, and we'll get to chronicle that and see how he's doing. Jaden, fantastic job. You're a wonderful mom. What are your any final thoughts for people listening that are saying, "Gosh, this sounds really cool. I don't know if that would help my kids, or I don't know if they need that or not." Just whatever they're thinking. What would you say to them? Very well said. Well, thank you so much. I'll let you get back to resting. I know sleep is. Oh, how does he sleep? Okay, so he eats on schedule and sleeps. That sounds amazing. Well, great job. I'll let you get back to rest, and thank you for sharing. You offered a lot of hope to a lot of people, so thank you for sharing. This is your weekly checkup. I'm Dr. Lazar. If you're just tuning in, you can call live. Couple more minutes tonight, 866-521 well, 866-521-9355. I'm going to take a short break, and I'll be right after this. And do it. Should I try? I just so weird. Welcome back to your weekly checkup. I'm Dr. Lazar. We've talked tonight about traumatic birth syndrome, and we had two really cool callers. Devin called in. She is a rock star in our office, and we also had Jaden call in, who just delivered. Great things are in store for your loved ones, for yourself. The bottom line is this: the power that made the body heals the body. It happens no other way. It doesn't matter whether it's ear infections or antibiotic resistance or um, or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Your nervous system is what runs the show. That is absolutely what is key. And as we get that taken care of, then your body can function the way it needs. So our number tonight is 866-521 well, 866-521-9355. We're going to take a short break, and I'll be back right after. Welcome back to your weekly checkup. This is Dr. Lazar, and we are in the home stretch. I want you to take our number down if you're interested throughout the week. If you need any help from us, we would absolutely love to serve you. Our number is 866-521 well, 866-521-9355. And you can reach our office. You can request an appointment. And just for being a WMC listener, you can get a complimentary consultation. That's a $224 value. You can come in and we can check, see if you're a candidate for care, see if your kiddo needs to be checked. We don't believe everyone needs our help, but we do believe everyone deserves a good exam. So uh, take that number down, 866-521 well, 866 521-9355. And we would love to meet you and to be able to uh, offer you that consultation. Well, I am super grateful that you've tuned in to listen. This is an exciting time to take over the show and have great callers, and we really appreciate you listening. So we look forward to being back here next week. I'm Dr. Lazar, and have the best week. God bless.